Michael Jordan's not making his money from playing basketball. His whole focus is other things now. And I think in life, we need to do that, is to change with the times and know that we are changing. Our creativity is changing. Our focus, our purpose is changing. But when we're living in the past, that could be a dead-end road.
Welcome to The Art of Quality in Systems, a new chapter. In this series, we'll explore the qualitative patterns that make systems thrive. Not the metrics, those tell you about the past, but the living qualities, how relationships operate, how financials flow, whether people go all in during a crisis, whether trust is a priority. We'll learn from the practitioners who've built enduring systems, whether it's in business, communities, or ecosystems. I'm your host, Paul Higgins, and this is The Art of Quality in Systems. Today, I'm joined by Victor Wooten. Vic understands quality as a systems thinker who happens to express his philosophy through the bass. A 5-time Grammy Award winner and legendary performer, but more importantly, a teacher who learns from nature, studies the flow of energy, frequencies, and vibrations. From jamming with the greats, Miles Davis, Bela Fleck, Prince, and of course his brothers, to understanding why technical perfection often destroys what matters most in music. Vic brings a unique lens to our investigation of what makes quality in the human experience. He's discovered that quality can't be forced or held tightly. The harder you grasp, the more it slips away. Please welcome Vic. Vic, welcome to the Art of Quality podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We both share a dear friend who has not only taught in your camps over the years, but also is a great human. I know from our side, we are all really, really grateful for you making the time today. We appreciate you have a lot going on, busy schedule, but we really look forward to unpacking some of these ideas around quality in music and nature.
Let's do it.
Before we dive in, would you be able to just walk us through, for somebody who hasn't seen any of your solos or been to one of your amazing concerts, what is the why behind the essence of how you bring yourself to music? Where did that come from in terms of your life?
Absolutely. Good question. How and why I do what I do musically, and really most everything else in life, is because of, well, first my parents, how they raised us, but my musical ability and awareness came from my brothers. I'm the youngest of 5 boys, no sisters, 5 boys. And literally when I was born, and probably before I was born, my brothers knew that they needed a bass player, a bass guitarist, because they were already playing. So my earliest memory was being about 2 years old. Our dad was in the service, so we moved around a lot. We're living in Hawaii right now. And I can remember my brothers, my 4 older brothers, setting up to play music. And my oldest brother, Reggie, who's only 8 years older than me. So if I'm 2, he's 10. Reggie gives me a toy Mickey Mouse guitar. Very small. Well, for me, it was kind of big, but very small when I look at the pictures. And my brothers would, in my memory, literally tell me nothing, but they would start playing. When they hand me an instrument, I want to be just like them. So I start strumming this thing. And nobody tells me anything. Here's how you do it. Here's how you hold it. No, that's wrong. Do it this way. I just strum along. And from my memory, they treated me as an equal, not as a beginner. Like most everything else, and especially in education, you're told you're a beginner, you're treated like a beginner. Before you can do it yourself, they tell you how to do it. So in the same way that I was learning to speak English, like parents tell you nothing. They just let you talk. And even if you're saying it wrong, you don't know. because your parents learn your way first. They don't force you into their way first. They learn your way. And however you say a word, your parents treat it as right. So even if it's wrong, you never know. So we learn to talk through freedom and acceptance and never being corrected. Never. Freedom. I learned to play music the same way. My brothers never said, no, that's wrong. You have to do it this way. You're holding it backwards. I just got to strum along. And I realized in the same way that when a baby talks their first language, however they say it is right. The parents learn your way before you're forced to do it their way. I learned music exactly the same way. And basically we've never turned back. So we've been a 5-piece band. You know, we lost one of our brothers, Rudy, our saxophone playing brother. We lost him, unfortunately, in 2010. But the 4 of us are still playing, and we have some recordings with Brother Rudy on it. So we use those, and we still include him. So we still treat it like a 5-piece band. And so I would say that my way of playing, definitely my way of learning, came through a natural process. And it's a process we all know, because that's how we all learn to talk, all of us.
The word freedom, it jumps out having spent some time with not only your books, but also your work that you've shared online and music. The word freedom, it strikes me that it means something very different to you over time as a kid goes through life, as they mature, than the normal definition of freedom when it comes to music. I wonder, could you unpack what that idea of freedom looks like as a kid matures in their what practice, whether that's music or sports, or like how did that freedom evolve for you?
Sure, sure. For me, freedom to me just meaning that there is no wrong way. You can do whatever you want. And to go back again, that's how kids learn to talk, through complete freedom. You can't say a word wrong. However you say it is how your parents accept it, and guaranteed they're going to start saying it that way also. I learned to play music that way. My brothers could make whatever I played on that little toy Mickey Mouse guitar, whatever I played, they could make it sound good. And again, I hate to be redundant, but that's what us parents do to our kids. Whatever you say, we make it right. And so we learn to talk through freedom. There's zero pressure, which is one reason we learn it fast. We learn it very quickly because there's no pressure on us. Where traditional education, usually you have to be right. And through freedom, I don't have to be right. I just get to be. I'm allowed to be. Right? Open-ended. I'm allowed to be however I choose to be in the moment. And that choice in the next moment may be different, but I'm allowed to be that way too. I learned to play music through that kind of freedom.
When we think about modern musical teachers and then also teachers in an educational setting, how do you think they get in the way of kids almost maintaining that freedom over time?
Sure. This is just my opinion. I don't claim to be right or wrong, but I just tell you what I think. I think that most modern education, at least here in the USA, in America, that's pretty much what I know. I believe we make a big mistake by forcing, whether we realize it or not, by forcing the children not to be who they are. We have to have them be who we want them to be first. And I'll just stick with music. When you take music lessons, you can't play that instrument the way you want to play it. You have to learn to hold the drumsticks the correct way. You have to learn the correct technique on the bass guitar or the piano. You have to do it this way. If you're going to play in C major, you can't play a C sharp. That's wrong. And you learn that right away. And think about this. When you're a beginner, you're going to be wrong more times than you're right. So imagine hearing how wrong you are all of a sudden. When you are jamming at home, with a stick or beating on boxes, there was no wrong, right? But now your parents say, wow, my child has interest in music. Let me find a teacher. Now, in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, that freedom we talked about a minute ago is gone. And playing from the standpoint of pure enjoyment is gone. Now I have to play to be right. That's no longer fun. The smile is gone. The anxiety starts to take its place. And the teacher is making you do what he or she wants, rather than when we have our own child and they're learning to talk, they talk how they want and we accept it. But now the teacher has an agenda, and it's not the student's agenda. So now the student has to be something that they're not in order to be what the teacher wants them to be. The smile is gone. The enjoyment is gone. And within a year, the student will be gone. That's my thought.
Mm. When it comes to the idea of the teacher changing the objective in learning music, or reorienting that pursuit, that freedom for the artist, it's obviously not from a bad place. But what is driving the the turning left instead of actually allowing it to be dynamic within it? Is it an absence of them actually seeking to look at it through Vic's eyes as a young artist? Or is it a commercial thing? Do you have a sense?
Yeah. The first real answer is I don't know, but here's what I think. Teachers usually teach how they were taught. And in the West, at least here, and even some Asian countries where they're teaching piano, it's very strict. But people are usually teaching the way they are taught. And the way we are taught music is through being rigid, rules. You have to be right. If you're in this key, only these notes, until you get up to jazz, and then you're allowed to put those notes back in. And now I'm like, wait a minute, that's what you told me not to play. All of a sudden, Miles Davis is playing a C sharp and a C major chord, and now that's cool, But I think we need to, in all cases, look outside of what we know. To be flexible enough to go outside of what we know, to be able to address who we're talking to. For example, if I know, nuclear physics, I need to turn that off if I'm talking to a child, right? What we forget as teachers, and I don't always blame teachers because, and let me go back a minute, teachers I know who are hired by a system, public or whatever, they have to keep their job. And if you have, 10 to 30 kids in a class, you have to pass all of them. You got to get them all there to keep your job. So you have to be really good at your teaching job to be able to individualize each student and give each student what they need. Now, there are some teachers that are great at that. Some aren't, they just teach as a whole. But to answer your question, I believe that most of us teachers are teaching how we were taught, including me. I wasn't taught a rigid way, so I don't do that. Maybe if everybody was teaching my way, I might go the rigid way. I don't know. But I like to teach through as much of the same freedom that I was given and that we were all given when we were learning to speak our first language. And, I just want my students or my friends or whatever I want to call them to have a rich and complete education, or more so experience, because you'll learn more through experience than education. So if we're learning music, we're going to be playing together the first day. The same way, again, I'm going to go back to language every time, because how we learned our first language, it should be the model for everything, because we learn it quickly and freely. So I'm going to make sure that the student is playing the first day, not learning rules, just playing.
The approach that you're taking to teaching music in the camps that you run, I wonder, could you bring us into the fold on how you've intentionally worked through the idea of teaching music through nature?
Sure. Our camps are different. And I will say that in all of our camps, there is what I will call a nature element. Okay, our camps are in the woods. We have our own location. We're surrounded by trees every direction, a river that we can walk to. But we also have classrooms. Okay, we go inside where there's air conditioning, no bugs, and we do that. But we also get outside to bring us back to our naturalness. And we do a bunch of different things, But one of the overall things that I want to make sure is happening at our camp is that we are asking our students questions, not just giving them answers, asking questions and encouraging them to keep asking questions. For example, I like tracking animals or people. And what that means, if you step in the mud, I love looking at that print down there and trying to read it. When did it happen? Which way was their head turning? What were they doing? I love that kind of thing. So it's not rare that we'll be outside and I'll point at the ground and there'll be an animal track there. And the first question everybody asks, because it was me too before I learned this technique of answering questions with more questions. The first question, what animal is that? Or do you know what animal that is? And my question will either be yes, no, I don't know, but I will never say what the animal is. Because if I say that's a raccoon, it's over. We're not looking anymore. So I may really even play dumb. What track are you talking about? Well, that track you just pointed at. Well, how do you know I didn't point to that track? Oh, that's a track too? Do you see anything there? No? Keep looking, How many toes does it have? And I will rarely ever say it's a raccoon. Because in most cases, if I say it's a raccoon, we're done. We're done with it. But if I say, what track? Now they have to look again. That track. What's it look like to you? I don't know. Do you see any other tracks? Does this animal have only one foot? Did it just levitate down and put one foot and levitate? It's got to be more. Do you see any other tracks? How many toes? Do they have claws? And I learned this from one of my nature teachers to keep it going. So by the time they get their answer, usually they've discovered it themselves and they've learned 10 more things than they thought they were asking. It's a way of tricking them to keep looking, because what animal is to me is not important. It's seeing. It's to be able to see. It's like where a lot of music teachers will say, well, what note should I play in this key? Someone might ask, I'm in this key. Here's the notes you can play. Where to me, a better teacher will say, well, what sounds good to you? Let's play them all. What sounds good to me is going to be different from you. It's like putting a buffet on the table and someone saying, what should I eat? It's up to you. Taste it all. you know. So a lot of questions at our camps, and I choose instructors, I rarely tell people how to teach when they come to our camp, but it's also rare that I hire a teacher that I don't know. And I don't mean I don't know them physically, like we met, we're good friends, but I search them out, I research them, I find them online. And sometimes I'll take a chance. I've heard about this person so much. But, after meeting someone like Darren, I think we literally met on the street, and then life brought us together again somewhere by accident. And all of a sudden now we're hanging out, and he's got kids and a beautiful wife, and he's a good guy. At that point, I don't really have to know a whole lot about his teaching because I know a whole lot about him. And then I might take a chance. Okay, let's have this guy join me, you know. But I like teachers that are good people and who see the students as good people, not empty vessels that I have to fill with my knowledge.
The idea of tracking really surprised me when I heard that it was something that you had actually spent a lot of time around. I wonder, could you unpack what it is about tracking as a process that actually drew you in?
Absolutely. I don't know why I just fell in love with it right away. But what it does for you, it is sort of like a good friend of mine who once said, music is like counting to infinity. Doesn't matter how long or how far you count, you never get any closer to the end. And for me, tracking is that way. Music is definitely that way, but tracking is that way. There's always more to see. And there's no end to it. And then there's that part of it too, that maybe the overinflated egotistical part of it that says, wow, I know I'm seeing some stuff you don't see. There's probably part of that too. But tracking to me, like music, is a doorway into your being because we see from the inside, right? Not the outside in, it's the inside out. It was fascinating to me at one of my nature classes to be looking at the ground, and a teacher might say, there's a whatever track there. And I'm looking and it's not there until either through direction from the teacher or for me relaxing my eyes or just continuing to look, something starts to appear that wasn't there before. Right? It wasn't, because I was looking, but all of a sudden, a whole nother thing starts to appear. And then the more that I learn, more appears. It's like music. We could hear the same song, but you might start talking about, these chords and motifs that I don't hear. They're there, but I don't hear them. And to me, that's fascinating. Hearing a great chef talk about the saffron and the spices that I know are there, but they're not to me, it's just a good piece of pasta or steak or whatever. Mm-hmm. But to be able to pick it apart and see all these things, so seeing deeper. And I don't know a whole lot of things, at least in my life, that help me learn to look deeper than tracking. And through learning to track, I've learned to track through music. And I started doing it on my own first. And now we do a camp coming up actually next week called The Spirit of Music. And I won't say I teach students how to do this, but I open the door and have them try things. And then I'll show them what I use. For example, in one class, and to me, this is tracking through music. And the other thing about tracking is that you can relate it to any part of life. It's beautiful. It's not just animals walk. It's anything. The same way a chef can eat a piece of whatever and tell you what was in it. What speed probably it was cooked at, slow cooked. That's tracking. But what one of the things we introduce the students to at this particular camp, the Spirit of Music, is I'll find someone in a classroom who I don't know, nobody knows. It's their first time at camp. Nobody knows them. And I'll ask them to go up and play something for us. And after they play, I hand out a questionnaire to the people listening. And it might be, how long have they played this instrument? Do they have siblings that also play? Do their parents play? Do they play other instruments? Is this their first instrument? Things like that. And it's amazing how close people can get in many times. And I relate it to the fact that if I hear you talk, or I hear someone else talk, or if I hear someone on a recording, you might be able to say, okay, that's a 5-year-old, 5 to 7-year-old girl, born in somewhere in Latin America, speaking English, but that's not her first language. Probably has an older brother. You'd be able to pull out a bunch of things. And to me, it's just fascinating to me to be able to look deeper. And maybe it could be the ego thing again that's saying, man, I know most people aren't looking this deep. That's a little bit fun too. But to be able to go deeper, and to me, it's not an animal on the ground all the time, but it was the concept of seeing, of looking deeper, going beneath the surface. And once you've learned how to go beneath the surface, don't allow that beneath the surface to become a new surface. Let's go further, And what I found through tracking is you can do it with anything. And so since my love is really music, I've learned to be able to use tracking in music. How was that for a short answer?
No short answers here. That's just beautiful. The fact that nature is a tool within your teaching at different layers, from frequency or the spacing that you're in to the experience of the individual in different places across land or across water. And I wonder, could you speak to that design within the camps and how you think about that influence on people creating music regardless of their talent?
The nature element, you mean? Absolutely. Absolutely. Our goal in life, spoken or unspoken, for one, is to be what we call natural. Right? When I'm learning a language, even if it's English, I just want to be natural. And kids are born that way. They're just who they are. I don't even know if they know that they're separate. Right? They're just who they are, being who they are. If you had a child 5 years old and you hand them a tennis racket, they've never touched one. Take them out to the court and you lob it over nicely and they just smack it right by you, low over the net, into the corner, and you're scrambling. First you'll say, well, that's luck in your head. But you'll say, good shot, you'll compliment, but then you lob it again, boom, other direction. You're scrambling for it. If that happens 3 times or 5 times, you will say that kid is a natural. Right? It's a phrase we use. You're a natural. Music, same thing. Basketball, whatever. You can do it kind of before you're supposed to be able to do it. We call you a natural. Well, what does that really mean? Natural. What it really means, to cut right to it, is that it means that you are like nature. Right? A tree isn't like focusing and trying to grow. Right? A beaver doesn't have to practice chewing down trees and building a dam. A squirrel or a bird just knows how to build a nest. When did they practice it? And they do it with their feet and their beak. You try to build a nest with your mouth and your teeth. It's just natural. And that's what we're trying to be. We are trying to be like nature, whether we realize it or not. Right? Nature is being, not trying. And that's what we're trying to be. We want to just be. That's why we practice the guitar so that I can play naturally, like nature. But in many cases, and I'll dare to say most cases, we use a very unnatural process to become natural. So in other words, a beaver or a squirrel or they're not practicing these things rigidly over and over, over and over. A beaver is just going to chew on this tree and then in the next tree to practice. They just use their natural ability and do what their natural ability causes them to do. Right? A beaver has claws, but it doesn't try to claw down the tree. It uses these big teeth, which is their natural thing. But for us to become natural, we think it takes practice. And to use a musical scenario, we're told to sit in a room, close off room, and do the same thing over and over. Unnatural. Okay? This is me. I'm going to make a lot of teachers mad when I say this. You will not get better at music by practicing scales in a room by yourself. You just won't. You'll get better at playing scales, but you'll never get hired because you can play scales. In the same way, we learn the English alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but nobody says sit in a room and practice it 7 letters at a time. That's what we tell you to do in music. Practice these 7 letters. Well, I want to play all of them. No, practice these 7. It's like saying we're going to say the alphabet up to from A to G over and over. That's silly, and you know it is. Everybody knows it is. But because that's what they taught me in music, I'm going to teach you too. Okay, we need someone to be smarter than that. And my brothers are. That's how I learned it. So, understanding the word natural, if you look it up in a dictionary, it'll tell you to be like nature. And nature doesn't sit in a room and practice. Nature recognizes, utilizes, and maybe even extorts its natural ability. Right? A lot of people study martial arts, and me too, and you learn all these spin kicks and all this kind of stuff. But if a dog attacks you, it's just going to bite you. Right? That's his main thing. It's not going to spin around and whip its tail. It's just going to do what's natural. And in many cases, the dog's going to win because it understands its naturalness. As humans, we have natural abilities. And in many cases, they get taught out of us. And I want to make sure not to do that. Really quickly, to go back to the dictionary will tell you that the word natural means to be like nature. But if you keep reading, it'll also say that the word natural means without sharps and without flats. In music, we can have a C natural, we can have a C sharp, C. So even the dictionary can show you the relation of music to nature. But still, as teachers, our formal way of teaching is to remove you from your naturalness so that you learn these rigid, I'm adding the word rigid in, rigid rules and techniques rather than learning to play how you naturally play, the same way we allow our children to talk the way they naturally talk. So we have our camps in the woods so that you're surrounded by the most natural thing on the planet. Whenever we get out of sorts in life, what do? We go to take a walk in the woods. We'll go take our shoes off, walk through the grass. We'll go to the beach, need a vacation. We return back to nature to settle ourselves, right? But the people who live close to nature in every continent, the Aborigines, the Eskimos, the Kalahari Bushmen, the people in the Amazon, the natives in every culture, right? They're just as natural as they can be because they've never left it. But most of us civilized people, we close ourselves off from it. I need to be in my house, turn up the air conditioner, turn up the heat, rather than being what's natural, which sometimes we're supposed to be cold. We're supposed to be a little bit warm, supposed to stand in the rain, things like that. So the camp is about bringing people back to their naturalness in ways they're not even conscious of that we're doing it. And one of the main things is that we're surrounded by nature 24/7 at our camp.
One of the areas that just seems endlessly fascinating is the cymatics, the idea of frequencies and this subconscious energy that exists, whether we pay attention to it or not. How do you expose people to that when we're almost hardwired not to see it?
Sure. I don't always unpack it because for one, I don't claim to be an expert in cymatics. It is something that through my brothers I've been aware of for decades. My brother Roy is that kind of thinker, and he's been into that since I can remember. But at a normal camp, I don't go into it. But the camp we're about to start soon is a camp called the Spirit of Music. And it's a camp where we make an agreement at the very first night that we can talk about whatever. As crazy as we want to be. It could be religion, it could be race, it could be politics, it could be cymatics. And we're going to accept it, whether we agree or not. We're going to accept each other whether we agree or not. And we make an agreement the first night that we can talk about anything, even uncomfortable subjects. And we're not going to negatively judge each other. Because we can't say we're not going to judge each other. You can't get through life without making judgments. But judgments don't have to be negative and degrading. So yes, we can judge, but we're not going to degrade each other. We're not going to, and we can argue. But we're not going to get to the place where we're arguing just to prove that we're right. Right? And so we make that agreement the first night, and people don't have to agree. They don't. I let them know that, but there are conversations they will not be invited to. You don't have to leave camp, but we're going to have some conversations. You have to sit somewhere outside or whatever. No one ever doesn't agree, and we have the best conversations. But we talk about cymatics all the time. And for me, all cymatics is, and maybe I'm wrong, but all cymatics to me is recognizing the geometric, or I'll just say the beautiful shapes that vibration can make. The beautiful shapes. And one of those beautiful shapes is you. Right? It's vibration. Now, religion talks about, in the beginning there was, at least in Christian religion, talks about sound. Right? And that's what made everything. Well, that's what's still making everything is vibration, different types of vibration. But the way that has become very, very popular for people who may not know is we have now learned how to have a flat something, put a speaker underneath it, put something like sand or dust, and then play a tone. Play a tone, a sound, and you'll see that dust form this geometric shape. And it's like, whoa, it's beautiful. And certain frequencies, all different frequencies will determine what shape it is. And some people say if the tone is a little off, it makes an ugly shape or whatever. But as soon as we start talking about ugly versus beautiful, now we're talking about opinions. I just say it makes a different shape, and it may not be as symmetrical, but it really is fascinating to see. It really is fascinating to see. But just a couple more thoughts on that. Because on Earth we are bound by gravity, okay? The shapes we see are flat. Take gravity away, the shapes are no longer flat. So some people have done the same cymatics experiences in liquid, in water. And the shapes are spherical until the gravity is able to pull it down. And when you see these shapes in a gravity-less atmosphere, it looks just like our solar system, the universe. You'll see spheres. So it seems like the natural, without gravity, shape is a sphere, a circle of some sort. And now to take this in music, because some people say that everything is vibration. And I'll give that a musical sense in a minute. In the West, we tune to the note A440. And what that means is if a sound or if anything vibrates 440 times in 1 second, it'll produce a certain tone. And that's what we tune to in the Western world of music. We'll tune to that A or the violin or whatever. But if you cut 440 in half, you get 220. That's an A, an octave lower. 110 is a lower A. 55, a lower A. Well, if you keep going, about 7 octaves down, cut it in half 7 times, that A now sounds like this. You hear a rhythm. It's still an A, but it's vibrating too slowly to hear the pitch. We hear the rhythm. Keep going down slower, cutting it in half. Now I can't even hear the rhythm. Now I need a watch to be able to recognize that pitch, that A. I need a watch. Keep slowing it down. Now I need a calendar. Right? Or take 440 and speed it up. Now I can't hear the pitch. Now I see it as a color. Speed it up. It's infrared. I can't even see it anymore. Bees can see it or whatever. So what it's pointing out to me, and I could be wrong, is that everything is a vibration. Everything is a vibration, but at the different speeds that it vibrates will determine the shape that we see. And our eyes can only see certain vibrations that are within a certain realm. At a different realm, we will hear it. At another realm, we will smell it. For some of us, at a different realm, we'll sense it. But it seems to be that it's possible that everything on this place we call Earth are just different levels, different rates of vibration. That's a broader example or definition of cymatics.
When it comes to the camps, in many ways, I can imagine you're bringing some of these concepts to folks for the first time. What are the hardest parts for people to actually relate to in the natural setting? And what is it hard for people to let go of within the camps?
It's hard for people to let go whether it's true or not. If I don't believe it, it can't be true. But if I believe it, now it's the truth. And especially when my brothers come to talk, I tell the students right away, I said, even before my brothers get there, I say, okay, this might get crazy. I said, but as best as you can, disengage true or false. Okay? You will learn faster if you can disengage what's true and what's false. Because I'm 60 and I'm supposed to know what's true or false, right? The world has been around, the universe has been around a whole lot longer than my 60 years. So who am I to say? So I say to the students, as best you can, turn that off. But get your notebooks out and take notes. And when you disagree, you best write that down. Write that down. More than what you agree with. You don't agree, you don't understand. You write it down and you study that. Because if somebody believes it and I don't, my first thought is to say, well, you're wrong. Right? You can train yourself to say, well, if that person believes it, it's true to them. Let me see if I can understand them and accept it. Or don't even accept it, but get it down. But look at it as a buffet of food. Right? Like I always tell people, I don't like olives.
Nor do I.
But are olives wrong? Right? Who am I really talking about? I'm talking about me, not olives. right? So if you say that's wrong, you're talking about you, not that thing. You may not realize it. But when I talk about olives, I'm talking about me. If I don't like that song, I'm talking about me. If I don't like you, I'm talking about me, right? And I don't want to be a person who's just walking around not liking everything. I want that understanding. And then I understand olives. Okay, it's good for you. It has these vitamins. I still don't like the taste. But if you like olives, here, this is for you. It'll do this for you. It's good. So I don't want to walk around just not liking stuff. So I want to learn to understand stuff. And I tell people that if you're only paying attention or accepting the things you like in life, you're missing half the picture. So I always tell people to explore the stuff they don't like. You hear a song you don't like, learn it. You see a person you don't like, go meet them, introduce yourself. And all of a sudden, it's going to force you to look deeper. And 99 out of 100 times, you're going to end up liking that person a little bit more, liking that song a little bit more, liking that food a little bit more, right? Because sometimes, like I love olive oil. Right? So I can't say olives are bad. It might be the amount, the concentrating of it, you know. So instead of avoiding it, in many cases, I move towards the things I like because I realize I'm talking about me.
What we're trying to unpack in terms of the art equality is what lies beyond what's measurable, but still is important. What was your kind of toolkit that you used to be able to keep unpacking that other half?
Sure. A lot of it came through what Tom Brown called tracking. Tom Brown was my nature teacher that I started. First, I read his book called The Tracker. That was the first book he wrote. And I got into that book and found out this is a real guy. I got to learn from this guy. And he always taught how to look deeper. There's always more. And I love that concept. And I realized that my parents were kind of doing the same thing. They always would make us think about our actions, right or wrong. Go deeper, think. But as humans, for the most part, we can only go so far. And we don't know how far that is. But most of us will only go so far, which a lot of times is just the surface. I don't like that person. I don't like this food. I love this song. I don't like this song. But musicians, at least in music, go a little further than the normal people. I can almost tell you why you like this song. Right? There's a great song around the world called Uptown Funk. Right? That song has 2 chords in it. 2. Why do we like that song? I can tell you why. It doesn't mean you have to know why. But I like to be able to go deeper. Now, there are some things, like I have a bass guitar. I got a bunch on the wall right here. I know nothing about them. People ask me, what kind of neck is that? Is it maple? Is it? I don't know. What kind of electronics? I don't know. I do know there's wires in there, and it takes a battery. I can change the battery. I don't want to know. I'd rather use that part of the brain for something else. I want the people who do know to know that stuff. I don't want to fill my brain with it. I know some people who want to know everything. I'm not one. So I only want to go deep on certain things. As humans, it's not for us to know everything. But for some things, there is a benefit in going deeper and deeper. But I do believe with our human intellect and brain and mind, that little grapefruit-sized squashy thing in our brain, we're only allowed to go so deep. But, we're only here for, a short amount of time on this planet. I believe we will go deeper in a different direction at some point. I don't believe it just ends and it's all over. But there is a benefit in going deeper in the things that move you than going deeper than the rest. I'm glad that my car mechanic can look at that car of mine and go deeper than I can. I'm glad that the doctor who just gave my wife a hip replacement can go deeper than I can. So we need people in all walks of life. The person picking up my garbage needs to know more about it than me. I honor that person, right? So going deeper, there is a benefit to it. And I think the going deeper, the most place we should go deeper is in who am I? And we want to be able to do that in every instant. Right? I feel this way. What you said hurt my feeling. I can either attack you or I can go deeper into myself and find out why I was hurt. Why did I allow what you said to change how I feel? I gave away that power to you. Go deeper. And you can do it in whatever field you're in. Why do I like this song? Why do I play bass in the first place? I put it down. I want to pick it back up. It was what my mom said, know thyself. Know thyself. Her license plate up until her death on her car said, be what you are. That was not her whole thing, but a big important thing was to know who you are as a person. And you have to look deeper from every angle in order to do that. But I do believe there's a benefit to it.
I recently had an experience where I went to a concert as an Irish artist, James Vincent McMorrow, and he stood up at the start of the concert and basically said, guys, I've spent a decade or so. He became famous quite early in his career. Then he went a decade or so with a label, and that led him down a certain route in terms of his career and his artistry and creativity that was catering to what model that the industry thought he should do. And in this concert, he said, I'm doing something completely different now. I am halfway through writing my album. I've brought in artists 3 days ago to teach them with me, but you guys are my feedback loop. And there was 10,000 people in the concert. The reason why I share that story is I consistently see artists whose creativity is almost sucked out of them by the environment that they're in. And I wonder, you seem over the course of your career to have been had longevity in your creative pursuit in a way that others weren't as fortunate to have. I wonder what underpinned that.
For one, it seems like I figured out what the artist you just were listening to and talking about. I figured that out a little bit earlier than he did. But all of us artists will figure that out at some point, that I don't want anyone to be in charge of my creativity or my creations other than me. So a lot of times when we're young and we want that stardom, we want a record deal. And for the most part, those days are over, right? I mean, it's totally different. But back then, you couldn't even make a record without someone giving you money to do it. But it was a record deal that we all wanted. But many of us, if not most of us, didn't realize that if you sign that record deal, you don't own your music anymore. And you're being told what to do. You're being told how much you're going to make. And it's like you have 10 kids, but you can't do what you want with them. Somebody else is telling you what to do with them. And then in the end, when that record deal is over, you don't even own those 10 kids anymore, those 10 songs. I got songs I'll never own again. A record exec's kids will own those songs and not my own kids. Right? Wow. And many of us find that out the hard way. So there are some songs and records of mine I'll more than likely never own. But from then on, I'm owning them all. So it sounds like that this artist has figured that out. I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to own these songs of mine. I'm going to do what I want with them. So I made that decision a long time ago, knowing that I might make less money. But again, my kids will own my music, not a record exec's kids. In four of the cases, 4 different labels, right? And there's only one of those labels that still exist. So in the other three labels that have disappeared, Arista Records, right? The label Clive Davis that discovered Whitney Houston, right? We were doing a record at the same time, the same producer. So two of my brothers are on Whitney's first record, right? That doesn't even exist anymore. So the record we did for Arista, where is it? Who owns it? We don't even know who owns that music. Two other labels I was on with my own music. That first Arista one was with my four brothers. Two other labels that I had my own music on. They don't even exist. I have no idea where my music is. Right? In many cases, they sell their catalog. And because now I have a bigger name, they don't want to give me back my music. They want to be able to get more money by selling it to someone and say, hey, yeah, we got Victor Wooten's catalog also. But they don't ask my permission. Wouldn't it make sense for them to offer me the music back first? Give me first dibs on my own music? No, you hear about it later. That record label went out of business. Where's my music? Well, I don't know. It's happened too. So there's one label that still exists that has, I think, two of my records. Do they want to give them back? No, they're making the money. But it's my music, right? So I'm smarter than that now. I will not sign those deals. And any deal I do sign, any deal, has an expiration date. I make sure of it. I'm going to lease this book to you, Penguin, for this many years. And once these years are up, we're going to come back together and see whether we want to stay married or not. And if so, cool. We'll do it for another few years. But I make sure that my creations will always come back to me so that my kids won't own it. Because having to deal with that can suck the creativity out of you. And I want to be able to stay creative and be happy being creative. And now I am because I own my stuff. Do I sell less? Probably. But we all do now because people don't buy music. But I own it. Right? So I think that artist is figuring that out. And my hat's off to that person.
In a commercial sense, that's almost at a contract and a legal level. But if we go up a level to the artists themselves, it strikes me that not every artist can continue to be creative over the course of their career. Or at least they struggle for longevity in a career as an artist. Maybe their first album was so famous that they couldn't get away from it. What distinguishes those who have longevity to their creative and artistic pursuit versus those who struggle?
Well, we may be talking about two different things: being creative and selling that creativity to the public. Okay, so it's not that hard to stay creative. It's difficult to stay creative at the top of our game. That's different. But a child can write a song, right? Anybody can write a song. And it'll be creative. But is it at the top of my game as to where I was? That's hard. Can I write that hit again? Right? And the people that have written hits that you'll never hear. Prince has a ton of them. He's just writing great music and staying creative up until his death. To be able to stay at the top of that creativity game might be difficult. Okay? Because being at the top of it that's a judgment that I say, oh, this is good. This is it. And a lot of people are only looking for that. And for me, I'm not. I'm just being creative. And I'm not judging that this is a great song, this is a bad song. Because if I do that, I might say, man, I'm not creative today. Right? But I want to be creative like a child. If you say, hey, sing me a song, they'll just start singing. Not because it's a good song, but because it feels good. When it becomes a chore, when I have to do it in this amount of time to make sure it sells as much as my last record, blah, 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 or does the audience like it, or I'm judging my creativity by what the audience thinks, at that time, it's going to be difficult. But I don't judge my creativity by what you think. My career is defined by what you think. In other words, I'm a bass player without you. I don't have a career as a bass player without you. So I have to have that fine balance between pleasing you and pleasing me. Right. And in the end, I'm always going to win. I'm going to please me. And so by owning my own music, putting it out on my own terms, I get to be me. And maybe I have a smaller audience. No, guaranteed I have a smaller audience. But I never have to change. Or if I change, you'll change with me because it's me. I know the formula for selling more records. I know the formula for being more famous, more popular. I know that, but I'd have to leave me to do that. And I'd rather have that smaller audience and be me. Right. So when we talk about what keeps an artist from remaining creativity, we have to define what are we talking about. Meaning making number one records one after the other, or just being able to express themselves. Because it's going to be two different answers there, you know. But I think an artist can stay creative. But in many cases, we're trying to stay creative at the height of where we once were. That's a struggle. That's a struggle. Michael Jordan can't play basketball the way he used to, right? But does he still know the game? Can he help you? Absolutely. I can't play like I used to play. But can I still play? Yes. Willie Nelson was smart. He never tried to play all that fast stuff. He can play one chord. And now that he's got 90 something years in that one chord, whoa, it's potent. So our game changes as we get older, right? Our creativity changes, our purpose changes. And if we can work with what we have, not only with the remembrance of what we used to have, we can still stay at the height of our game, even though our game is changing. Right? In other words, Michael Jordan's not making his money from playing basketball. Right? He's not out there, uh, his whole focus is other things now. And I think in life, we need to do that, is to change with the times and know that we are changing. Our creativity is changing. Our focus, our purpose is changing. But when we're living in the past, that could be a dead end road.
We've touched on the idea of what creativity can look like in music. One of the quotes that really struck deep for me was this idea that we've almost seen music compressed from a foot deep to a quarter-inch deep. And I guess before we even get into technology and the role there, I wonder, could you just share to anyone listening to music today, what is absent in their experience of the quality of that music versus what you have experienced in your life, and also what you have seen others retain?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think you were referring to what I wrote in the intro to a book of mine called The Spirit of Music. And my thought, the best way to experience music is to play it. To me, that's the best way, because that music's coming from the inside, right? And you feel those vibrations. If you're singing it, if you're playing a flute, a guitar, a drum, your whole body's feel, F-E-E-L, the vibration. So singing being the most natural, where it's coming from the inside. Playing a horn, nice because you're blowing. It's coming from the inside. As soon as I pick up sticks or pick up a guitar, it's still good, but it's kind of outside. And what ends up happening is, like, when people sing, they never say, "Oh, I'm singing mouth." They don't name the instrument, but I'll quickly say, "I'm playing guitar. I'm playing." So that's outside of me, right? But that's still one of the best ways to experience music, is to play it. Another way is to listen. Okay, listen to live music. That's the closest thing to playing it. Live music. That's analog. Even if it's a digital piece of music, it's still being played to you. Now, when we listen, like before the 80s and the 70s, we were listening to vinyl, a vinyl record. So I made an analogy in the spirit of music with the help of a neuroscientist, a guy by the name of Daniel Levitin, who wrote this book, This Is Your Brain on Music. He's written a bunch of books. And my favorite, I think, I'll just say this to plug Dan, his newest book is called I Heard There Was a Secret Chord. And it's sort of like This Is Your Brain on Music, but easier to understand for me, less big words, but a great book. But he helped me come up with this analogy. I think that probably one of the best ways of listening to music we did in the 70s and before, vinyl record. And so I said in the music lesson with the help of Dan, if we were to take that vinyl or listening to live music, someone singing right in front of me, and say that's 12 inches, a foot, listening to vinyl might be 8 inches. It's not the same as live, but it's pretty good because it's an analog vibration. We used to record on 2-inch tape. Okay. Now CDs came out and everything is digital. Okay. So we're listening to what we call a wave file, .wav. We said that might be 6 inches. It's not the same in frequency. You're not getting as much. The music is good, but you're not getting literally as much frequency reaching your ears and your skin and all of that. 6 inches. So we've cut it in half already from live. Now, what's normal now is called an MP3. Don't know what it stands for. MP3, if a CD, which is made of WAV files, is 6 inches, an MP3 is a tenth the size of a WAV file. So that 6 inches has become 0.6 inches, a half an inch. To listen to an MP3, what most of us are listening to these days. Right, this is what our kids are listening to. Take that MP3, which is 0.6, put it through tiny little earbuds or a computer speaker. It may be 0.2 inches. Now, your kid's mind, this is what's normal these days. Okay? It's the equivalent of slow-cooked food grown out of the garden or straight out of the garden to fast food. It may taste just as good. This music sounds good, but the nutrients aren't there. And this is what's normal. And I go further in the book, which I won't go here, but we see, whether we notice it or not, we see the effects of it. Okay? We don't buy music anymore. We expect it free. When I was young, television was free, and we paid for our music. These days, it's exactly the opposite. We don't listen to music in groups anymore. I walk down the street listening to my own song. Where we used to buy a record and we all listened to it together. Not anymore. It's all separate. Right? So there's something that's going on. And this degradation could be maybe not the cause, but an added ingredient into the decline. I won't say the decline of all music, but the quality of it. And to me, again, it's the difference between eating what I call slow-cooked food, real food, and fast food. Fast food might even taste better, but we know it's not as healthy. So I think we have good music these days. I just don't think it's as healthy as it used to be.
Have certain cultures retained that quality that you're speaking about better than others?
Sure. The classical music culture, even though how they learn it, I think, how do you learn classical music I have issues with, or the rigidness. But when you go to hear it, you're listening to real musicians. The air's coming through those horns. There's nothing recorded. It's real. That's powerful. But it's the same when you go hear a band. But sometimes now when you're going to hear your favorite artist, especially in a big arena, most of it's not real. Most of it's being played through a waveform or an MP3, So that's different. But I got a chance to spend 4 or 5 days with a tribe in Africa who still live the old ways. And every night they used music at the end of their day. Now, they didn't have real instruments as we call them, but they would have a stick. In this particular place, they had a stick, and they had some kind of way found a piece of wire. So they had the piece of wire on this bowed stick, look sort of like a bow and arrow. But they would take other sticks and just hit that wire. And then they had this one little piece of metal that they had that they would go up and down the string. And they would play. And then everyone else was just clapping and singing and dancing. And the men had canes and rattles on their feet, and they're just chanting and going around the circle. And this went on for at least an hour without stopping. But what we were told is that they call this, in a Western world, they call it the trance dance. And what they did is they sang and danced their troubles away. Their whole day was musically sang and danced everything away so that they could start tomorrow fresh. To me, that was powerful. We go to bed with our troubles and wake up with them. They danced and sang theirs away every night. They did this trance dance every night, and we got to take part in it 2 nights. Powerful, just powerful. I knew something powerful was going on, but wow. And then their elder, this gentleman named Hanama, was in his 80s, we were told, and he's marching around. We were told that once the people singing and dancing raised the energy enough, Hanama could summon the spirit, and he could put hands on you and heal you of different aches and mental pains and stuff like that. And we had a couple of people there. One woman had recently just lost her son, and she was just mourning. And she said when Hanama put the hands on her, she just felt her whole body vibrating. But the cool thing that was so musical to me is Hanama said he can't summon this energy until the people singing and dancing, which I call the band, raises the energy enough. They have to raise the energy enough so that he can summon that energy and become the healer. And man, I'm sitting there thinking, that's a band. This is what a band's supposed to do for a soloist or for a singer. In many cases, when someone's singing or soloing, I'm just playing my part. Got to play my part. But they say, no, it's not. It's more. Yeah, you're playing a part, but you're using that part to raise this energy, this invisible, what I'll call spiritual energy, is you're to raise it so the soloist can summon it and be who he or she is. And that made me a better musician, just by the concept that now when you're singing, it's like, I got you. I feel you. I'm doing this for you, and I'm going to inspire you. Not that I'm going to play more, but energetically, I'm listening, I'm playing, and it gave me a whole renewed purpose of why I'm playing. And I have the perfect instrument to do it. It's the bass. I'm not the soloist. I'm supporting the melody. I'm supporting. But these people in Africa around a campfire taught me how to do it better than just about any other teacher will ever do it. So yes, there are cultures out there that are close to the original purpose of music. And then, you have, every culture in between. So I think we all have it to some degree. I'm just glad music still exists. I hope we will start paying for it again, though. So artists can make a living.
Very rare, I have to say, Vic, for somebody who I get to speak to have almost written a full book on quality. And one of the things that um, that really in the book around the elements of music, one of the things that jumps out is this idea of really the quality of listening really mattering in terms of your ability both as a bass player for the band, but also even in a musical setting, that role of listening and being attentive rather than being kind of away in your own whether it's thinking about a solo 5 minutes down the road or just in your own kind of cocoon. For folks who don't understand that way of listening, have you come across ways to actually practice that way of listening within a musical context or within the camps? Or have you seen certain artists that are good at being able to kind of help people integrate that over time?
One is just by paying attention. This is one of the things I tell students at the camps or wherever I'm teaching. You like a song, let's go further and find out why. It's the same way a person might say, "Oh man, I love this pasta. What's in it?" Oh, whoa, you use chocolate in the sauce? Oh my goodness, You want to go further. I can say I like it, and that's fine. But you can go deeper, as into why. And for me, I'm always asking that question, why? Because if I'm a musician and this is what I do, what are they doing in that song that's making me feel this way? Or maybe I don't feel this way, but the whole world does. The rest of the world does. Why does the rest of the world like this song? Right? And I can figure it out. Like I use the song Uptown Funk. There's some other songs. Whole world loves it. Why? Okay. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but I want to know why. What is it that they're doing? Right? Because those people that wrote that song knew exactly what they were doing. I'm a musician. I want to know. Most of us will just say, I like it. I learned the bass part. We play it at the club. Everybody dances. I want to go deeper. So if you want to go deeper into this thing called music or this thing called life, you ask why. And you use yourself as the gauge. Why do I feel this? Why do I sense this? But then if you don't feel it, but the masses do, ask why. What am I missing that they see? Doesn't mean they're right, I'm wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right, they're wrong. But what is it that I see? And the question why is always to me as a good one. And if you realize, if anybody's ever had a kid, just about every child goes through that why phase where they just ask why to anything, you know?
Yeah.
But that's a good question, is to ask why. It's just to go deeper than the surface. Always strive to go deeper than the surface. And I want to see more than what everybody else is seeing. Not to make me better. It's just that the person, I want to learn. I want to grow. I don't want to be average. I don't want to be normal. And why is a good question. Tom Brown would say, what am I missing? Okay. That was a question he would always have us ask. What am I missing? And his number one way of getting us there would be to sit and do nothing. That was his number one exercise for us to be able to just sit somewhere. And as boring as it was, even at a tracking class, we had to sit and look at a track, right? And in many cases, he would make us draw the track. Because to draw the track, you'd have to go deeper. And drawing the track would also help keep your mind from wandering. If I'm just sitting looking at a track, I'm thinking about everything but the track. My eyes see it, but my brain's somewhere else. But drawing it always made me look deeper. So you want to find ways of going deeper. And you just keep asking the question why is a good one.
From your book, where you explore the qualities within music and the elements of music, are there certain ones that you pay a lot more attention to now that you used to, in terms of being able to spot both in the production, kind of your own writing of music, but also in the playing as well?
Sure. I think what you're talking about, what brings to my mind right now is in the first book, the music lesson, this teacher in the book started talking about these 10 different elements of music. Of course, in music, we have notes, and that's probably 99%, at least 90% of what we teach is what the notes are. And there's only 12, so how far can we go? And 7, we're only allowed to play 7. But we're not dancing to the key of the song or whatever, there's got to be more. So in this first book, the teacher, Michael, breaks music into 10 different parts. So you could have, notes is definitely important. But there's also rhythm, there's tone, articulation, phrasing. You need the technique to play. You need to listen. There's space, right? There's feel, there's technique, all these different things that are just as equal. And so for me, in coming up with these things, I look at the things I used to pay attention to the least, and some of them that education never teaches, which one being space, right? Like even right now, we're having a conversation, but you're not talking. But you're not talking in a way that lets me know you are into the conversation. When I say something and you like it, you nod. You're looking at me. We're thousands of miles apart, but you're still engaged. A lot of people who are resting in music tune out. I'll come back in when your solo's over. But you are engaged in me. It'd be like playing sports and you don't have the ball, so you tune out. You're looking away. No, you know that you're still in the game. But a lot of people rest and play space in music as if I'm not a part of it. And in many cases, you can speak louder by playing space. A rest is not time that goes by. It's the music says, play this, which is space. We don't practice it. A teacher doesn't teach you how to play a harder space or a softer space. How to hit someone hard over the head with a space. It's powerful when you learn how to do it. Where are the exercises for playing space? We all learn how to play a note on beat, but do we learn how to release it on beat? Who practices it? So space is one, right? Dynamics is another. Not just loud or soft, but intensity, not intensity, right? There's a few that we don't teach. For the most part, we teach notes, a little bit of rhythm. But I know that a major scale makes me feel this way. If I want sad, I'm going to have this type of scale. What rhythm does the same? What dynamic range does the same? Right? Listening is a part of music. Rarely practice it. Rarely. How do I listen better? What do I practice to become a better listener? How can I listen while I'm playing? Things like that. We talk about it, but there aren't exercises. For the most part, there's exercises for notes, how to play notes. And in many cases, they're not done in realistic ways. They make us play scales, right? And you don't become a better talker by reciting the alphabet. You can be the best at the alphabet, but it doesn't mean I want to listen to you talk. Right? Scales the same way. So notes are important, but we teach them in my opinion, an unimportant way. But notes are just one of the things. But to get back to your question, space, which is, is the same as a rest in written music, but space, dynamics, and articulation are some that we don't practice. But now in a classical world, you practice articulation. They even have notation for it. In my world where, I get to play what I want at the club, the rock club, at the bar, articulation is almost non-existent when it comes to practice and lessons and teaching. But articulation can change the meaning of a word. And what I tell students a lot when I'm teaching, rather, I would say, like, if someone walked into your room, opened the door and said, "Hey, Paul, fire," and walked out, you wouldn't respond. But if there's really a fire out there, they said the right word, fire. But the tone, the articulation, the dynamic, everything else is wrong about it. Right? So in other words, that word now means something different. Not because the word was wrong, but everything else about it was. But if someone opened that door and didn't even say the word fire, but just started going, "Hey, Paul, hey," and ran out, you would be running out behind them saying, "Hey, what'd you say?" as you're running out. Even though they may not even have said a correct word, the intensity, the urgency, the feel of that word, the dynamics, the phrasing, the rapid fire words, the confusion even tells you what they mean, you know? And we don't teach how to do that with music, how to speak as clearly as we do with the language. And you can do it. So those are a few of the parts of music that I wish we spent more time on. I think 90% of what we teach deals with notes, and we're missing a lot.
One of the ideas that jumps out of the both of your books and also just even watching your solos, like you are communicating authentically to the audience, and they're experiencing, they're in unity with your experience. They're like co-experiencing the that flow of energy and exchange of energy, and it it seems a bit sad that that's lost now in today's way of experiencing music. That folks don't actually, if you're growing up with a noise canceling headset on your head, you aren't seeing and co-experiencing with the artist anymore in that way until maybe you go to 5 concerts a year, and then over the course of your life, maybe you'll have 2 or 3 concerts that might have that. Whereas 50 years ago, maybe every second concert had that, and that was nothing but your dynamic as somebody in the audience. I know when I come across music that I really love, I have physical sensations that like there'd be all sorts of just like hair standing up on my shoulders, or I'll feel some sort of bodily sensation, and it's a very rare thing, but a very special thing. And I think a lot of people I speak to, they miss that element of music and the experience of music. But in a world where we're facing, even with AI and some of the other tools, we don't have time to unpack it today. But I think like there is a lot of work for people to not be negative about these things, but actually to like maybe choose a different path intentionally and say, yeah, we can, it's an and or we can have the in-person experience and we can have this offline experience, but we value them differently in over time. Well, Vic, we have to, so I have a closing question for you. And also we have a space as well just to cover off where people can follow you. But the closing question is actually, what is your most direct experience with the idea of quality in your own life?
What comes to mind is a story that I'll get to in a minute, but for me, it comes down to a concept that a student turned me on to. And it's a student who, as a young kid, sat with his mom in front of a doctor and listened to the doctor tell his mom all the things that he, as a child, would never be able to do growing up because he's autistic. He's never going to, work with his hands. He's never ever going to be able to drive a car, live alone, all this stuff. And it's exactly what he's doing now, this kid. He just said that he took all these things the doctor said he'd never be able to do and started working on them. But now he drives a car that he bought, and lives in an apartment that he bought and pays for with the money he plays gigging with his hands, doing all this stuff, But he turned me on at my own camp to a concept he called win the day, W-I-N, win the day, which just means do your best at every moment. Starting from when we wake up in the morning, we make our bed. And that's success. And that's quality, right? I look at quality sort of like if I want to be successful. For most of us, that's in the future. Okay, I'm getting in the car, I'm going to go somewhere, and I'm going to do some quality. For me, it's wherever you are. So I want to wake up in the morning and do something that's quality, that's successful. So I'm not waiting for it. It's who I am. I'm walking success. Right? Success is a habit. Quality is a habit. It's not something I'm waiting for. And without using those exact words, it was what our parents, those 5 boys' parents, were teaching us. That if you're right about something, you don't have to prove it. No one has to know. If you're right, you're right. But if you're wrong, you don't have to, no one has to know. You know. So it's being your best Not tomorrow, not today, not when I get to the gig. It's every moment. Same thing that my friend Jonathan was saying, the autistic kid. Win the day. And it's every moment of the day. And for me, it starts in the morning, continues through the night, that I'm trying to do my best at every moment. And my big successes are made up of little successes. So that success becomes a mindset until I don't even have to think about it even anymore. That when I get up from this table, I'm going to put, my glasses back in their case. They're ready right now. I've got a cup here I'm drinking up, the pen I'm writing with. It's going to be nice once I get back. The chair I'm sitting in is going to be pushed under. Not because I'm better than anyone, but it's because it's a habit. It's just a habit. I don't have to think about it anymore. But quality is something you want to be, not only something you want to do. Quality work. Of course, if I'm hiring you, I want quality work. That should not be a question. So it's something you want to cultivate and become a habit, not just in the things you're good at, like I'm going to play music in a quality way. It's who you are as a being. As my mom said, be who you are, be what you are. And I want that who I am to be quality. And it starts with me, with how I see myself, because I'm the only person I can never get away from. And a lot of people don't like themselves. In many cases, we're trying to please everyone else. I definitely start with me. Right? And it starts, well, I shouldn't say it just doesn't end. But every day, I got up this morning, my bed is made. I go to the bathroom, brush teeth or whatever. It's clean when I leave it. And I want to be that quality. Sometimes I'm rushing. And if I don't make my bed, it's with purpose that I didn't do it. Yep. But if I see some garbage on the ground, I pick it up. So here's the story I was going to tell you where I saw quality. So one of the 2 down times in my life where I just felt down, not lost, just down. Difference, not lost, just down. But it was during this time the brothers had a bad record deal. I was telling you about Arista Records. During that time, what had happened, though, it caused the 5 of us brothers for the first time in my life to not be playing together exclusively. So a couple of them were in New York. We were all different places. It was because of this bad record deal. So I'm at home living with my parents. I'm out of high school. I'm not contributing money-wise to the family. I just say, okay, I got to get a job. All I know is music. But, I had a couple friends that got a job at a department store unloading couches and refrigerators. I'm strong. I can do that. I don't want to do that. But I remember walking to go to the store to try to fill out an application. I get to this corner that I can still tell you the names of the streets. I see a public bus come, stop, picks up some people. And as that public bus goes up the street, starts to take off and pick up speed, going from my right to left, there was a gentleman, a white guy in a white shirt, dark hair, in the back of the bus that just waved at me as the bus went by. And for some reason, that wave, I want to say metaphorically, but it was really almost, in my memory now, it felt physically like it washed over me. Just that wave, something went through me that took away my, I don't know the word, despair or something. More so than what it took away, it just woke me up. It was like an ocean wave that hits you. That first time at the beach and a big one hits you. You're not sleepy. You're just present, So something in that wave changed me that moment. And that moment changed the rest of my life. I never continued to that store. I never got that job. I never got whatever job that wasn't musical. I've been a musician my whole life. I turned around and went back home. I don't remember exactly what I did after I got home, but that wave I would say was a quality wave. And I've thought about it since because I realized that maybe in life, I'm trying to be this bass star, this musician, more likes on YouTube or whatever. My life's purpose might be to wave at the person who needs it. And I may not even know. But if I get that feeling to do it, I'm going to wave. My whole job might just be to wave at the right person at the right time. If that's the case, if that's even possible, because I don't know if that guy knows what he did to me that day or for me that day. I don't want to miss that opportunity. If someone needs a smile, I may not know. Someone needs a wave, a hug, a hello, I may not know. But I try not to miss that opportunity anymore, knowing what that guy did for me. And for me, people wave all the time. But that one was a quality wave. And I'm 60 now, so 40, at least 40 years later, I'm still talking about it. And that person probably doesn't even know, but he did the right thing that day. To me, that's a quality life. That you're going to do the right thing whether you know what it is or not.
Okay, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. The parting question is for many reasons seems almost immaterial compared to the story that we just heard. My sense is most folks will want to learn more about Vic, what Vic is doing in the world, what you are sharing with the world, how you are waving with the world. If people want to follow you along that journey, what is the best way? We, of course, will link the books and your TED Talk and commencement series. There's some amazing resources, which I have re-listened to hundreds of times now. But is there anywhere that you would point folks towards that you'll continue to wave and continue to refine online or be it otherwise?
Yeah, all the socials, as they call it, social media. I have a website, victorwooten.com. My schedule is there. I will be coming to Europe with my brothers, maybe October, November. Come to a show if you can. Go to my website, find the schedule. You can just listen to my music. You can find it for free everywhere, or you can purchase it. I came from an era where songs meant something. Earth, Wind, and Fire would sing, "You're a shining star, no matter who you are." We are family. I've got all my sisters with me. Before it was popular and we couldn't say it, James Brown had a song called "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." Black people couldn't walk around saying it, but we could sing it. So I understand how positive music can be. And I also know that because music is powerful, I can have you saying things that you shouldn't be saying. I can have kids walking around saying things they shouldn't, but I don't. If you listen to a song of mine, you're going to find lyrics that'll make you better. Some of them are just funny, but they're not going to be degrading. So listen to my music. As you said, I do have 2 books. The first one is called The Music Lesson, A Spiritual Search for Growth Through Music. I would urge you to start with that one. But if you want to go straight to The Spirit of Music, which is the sequel, you can read them in any order. They're also both on audio. You can hear them. And all the
I love
characters.
the audio, Vic. I got to hear
Thank
your
you.
family. It was magical. It was a really. I started with the digital version and then went to the audio, and it's really
Thank you.
beautiful. Well done.
I like the audio too because I had so much fun doing it. And all the characters that inspired the characters, all the people who inspired the characters, I had them read their part. So all the voices are different. And then I scored it with music with a lot of my friends, Bela Fleck and the Fleck Tones and Jake Shimabukuro on ukulele. In the second book, India Ari is the voice of music. In the first book before my mom passed away, she was the voice of music. A lot of fun in there. But I also have Instagram. I think TikTok, which I'm not on much, and X, I think it's called now. Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm on there, but I don't post much there. It's usually Instagram and Facebook. Every Wednesday, I'm releasing a video for the rest of the year. I'm doing a full year of Words of Wisdom, Wooten's Words of Wisdom, that comes out on Wednesday. And it's just a 2 or 3 minute video. Usually I have stuff that I heard my mom say or learned from my brothers or whatever. That's
Where will
happening
that
every
be
Wednesday.
shared, Vic? Is that on YouTube?
That's on Instagram every
On Instagram.
Wednesday.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yep, I'm doing 52 of them, 52 weeks.
Right.
So you can go back through and find them all up until current, and they'll come out every Wednesday. So, I'm around. It'd be kind of hard not to find me. But if you want more of a intimate experience where you'll get sick of me because I never leave, come to one of my camps. We get people from all around the world that come, and our camps, the normal ones are 6 days. I'm doing a free, absolutely free tracking weekend in September, where I just make sure that once a year I get out and track some animals because I love it. So I schedule a weekend every year to make me do it, but I invite people for free. I might just know a little bit more than you do about it, and we'll share and learn together. But I'm easy to find. And if you go to Facebook or Instagram and you, whatever they call it, DM me or something, direct message,
Yep.
I usually get them and answer them.
Great.
And so you can reach me that way. And yeah, there you go.
Wow, that's perfect. Well, Vic, thank you again. One of the most enjoyable conversations I've had in a very long time. Thank you for your
Very sweet.
attention, for sharing what often, unfortunately, some of these areas we don't get to unpack very often anymore. And I think there's a lot of young folks who listen in our orbit, as well as folks who are at different stages in their career and even in creative pursuits as well. A lot of authors that we would know who listen in. And I think there are some amazing nuggets. So thank you for sharing.
Paul, if you don't mind, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
And this is also for all the listeners out there. We're talking about music a lot, and I'm just going to say music. Give me whatever words pop to your mind if you were going to describe music. And this is for the audience too. Just think of, I don't know, 2 words, 5 at the most. What music is what?
Synchronous, coherent, collaborative,
And don't even think too hard.
and yeah, I think they're the 3. Yeah.
Okay, good words. And I'm sure the people out there
And
thought of
playful,
words. And
maybe.
what was that?
Playful or
Yeah,
fun.
playful music. We could keep going for an hour coming up with words, and none of them are wrong. But what I find when I ask people this, people never say that music are notes. You never describe music as notes, theory. Nobody even mentions an instrument, right? So when we're not playing, we go right to the source of what it is. But in many cases, when we're teaching or playing, we're not thinking of those words. We're not even thinking of what music is to me. I'm thinking of an instrument. No, you didn't even mention an instrument. And we could have talked for an hour and you wouldn't have. So for us teachers, we should find out what music is for that student. And that should tell us what we should be teaching. Right? But even if I'm teaching notes, it should be so that I could get to that playful part that you want. Right? So if we want this musical endeavor, and it can be whatever, it could be gardening. What is gardening? Describe it. But what I like to tell myself as well as students, you're not playing an instrument. You're playing those words through the instrument. In the same way, when you're speaking a language, you're not speaking the instrument. You don't say you're speaking mouth. So at some point, my goal is for this instrument, this guitar, to disappear. Okay, I don't want anyone to pay to hear my guitar. And I don't think they are. They're paying to hear me. So the goal is to express me through this instrument. So my point here for all the musicians out there, come up with your own words and remember that when you play, that's what you're really playing. It's not scales, notes, and a bass guitar or piano, because if I ask you to describe music, you'll never mention those words. So let's get back to the surface, back beneath the surface of what it really is, so we can do it with quality.
That's beautiful. Nick, thank you again.
Thank you.
And I think
Thank you for your time.
that is the perfect way to finish this conversation for now. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. For more resources, please visit our website, theartofquality.co. If you want to connect or have any feedback, please feel free to reach out.